A father's last promise on the road. The sun had not fully risen yet when Daniel stepped out of the house, holding his daughter Emma's small hand. The morning air was cold and quiet, the kind of quiet that made every sound feel louder. Emma, only 8 years old, rubbed her eyes and leaned against her father's side, still half asleep, but trying her best to stay awake. Daniel smiled down at her, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "Long drive today," he said softly. "But I promised you we'd make it in time, didn't I?" Emma nodded. Her grandmother's birthday was that evening, and she had been talking about it for weeks. She had even made a card with colorful drawings and glued tiny paper flowers on it. She carried it carefully in a small folder so it would not bend. Daniel locked the house, took a deep breath, and guided Emma toward their old gray car. He worked long hours as a delivery driver, so he was used to the road. Yet today felt different. He had woken up with a strange feeling in his chest, a mix of worry, hope, and pressure. He had promised his daughter they would not miss the celebration. He had promised his mother they would arrive before sunset. And he had promised himself he would give Emma a day to remember. For once, everything would go right. He placed Emma in the back seat, adjusted her seatbelt carefully, and packed their small bag in the trunk. The sky slowly shifted from deep blue to soft orange as he started the engine. The road ahead stretched far, straight and quiet, leading them to the small town where Daniel had grown up. Emma leaned forward from her seat. "Daddy, can we play the guessing game?" Daniel chuckled. "Already? We just started driving." "Please," she said, her eyes bright despite the early morning. "All right. You start." Emma looked out the window, searching for something interesting. "Okay, I see something that's blue and really big." "The sky," Daniel answered immediately. "Daddy, that was too fast." "Well, I am very smart, you know." "No, you're not," she said with a giggle. Moments like that made Daniel's heart warm. He had not always been the perfect father. Life had been heavy, especially after Emma's mother left them 3 years earlier. There were days he felt he had nothing to give, yet Emma, with her quiet strength and innocent love, gave him a reason to keep moving. Traffic was light as they continued down the highway. Sunlight now filled the sky, brightening the empty fields on both sides. For the first hour, everything felt peaceful. Emma sang along quietly to the songs on the radio, and Daniel kept a steady eye on the road. But as they reached a long stretch between towns, dark clouds gathered unexpectedly. The weather app had not mentioned rain, but the sky told a different story. A cold wind swept across the road, and within minutes, the first drops began to fall. "Daddy, it's raining," Emma said, watching the drops race each other across the window. "Just a little rain," Daniel replied. "We'll be fine." But the rain grew heavier quickly, beating against the windshield with loud, steady taps. The wind picked up, pushing against the car, and visibility began to fade. Daniel tightened his grip on the steering wheel. He turned the wipers to their highest speed, but even then, the road ahead blurred at times. He slowed down, staying far behind the few cars in front of him. Emma noticed the tension in his voice and sat up straighter. "Are we okay?" "Yes," he said, forcing a calm tone. "Just bad weather." He made a promise to his daughter, to his mother, to himself, that he would get them there safely. That promise now weighed on him more than ever. The rain fell harder, like sheets of water pouring from the sky. Cars around him turned on their hazard lights. A truck ahead began to drift slightly within its lane, struggling against the wind. Daniel's stomach tightened. The road curved sharply ahead, marked with warning signs. He turned the wheel gently, but the tires slipped for a second on the wet surface. His heart jumped. "Daddy?" Emma whispered. "It's okay," he answered, trying not to sound afraid. The rain was so loud now that he could barely hear the radio. Storm clouds turned the morning into near darkness. Lightning flashed far ahead. Daniel considered pulling over, but the shoulder was narrow, and he feared another vehicle might not see them in time. He kept moving carefully, slowly, each breath controlled. Minutes passed, though they felt much longer. The storm did not ease. If anything, it grew angrier. Then, in the distance, Daniel spotted flashing hazard lights. A small car was stopped on the side of the road, the driver waving for help. A woman stood beside it, holding a baby carrier covered with a blanket. Daniel slowed even more, thinking quickly. Stopping on a narrow shoulder in such heavy rain was dangerous. But leaving a stranded mother and baby alone felt impossible. He checked the mirror. No one was immediately behind them. "We're stopping for a moment," he told Emma. "Why?" "There's someone who needs help." He eased the car toward the shoulder, keeping the wheels as far from the road as possible. The rain blurred his view of the woman, but he could see the desperation in her frantic wave. "Stay here, sweetheart. Don't unbuckle," Daniel said, grabbing his phone. He opened the door and felt the storm push against him. Wind whipped at his clothes, cold and harsh. Rain soaked him instantly. The woman rushed to him. "Please." "My engine stopped, my phone died. I have a baby. Can you call for help?" Daniel nodded. "Get back in your car. I'll call." He dialed emergency services, giving their location and explaining the situation. The operator promised help would arrive soon. "Thank you," the woman said from her window, clutching the baby carrier. "Stay inside." "Don't stand on the road," Daniel urged. He jogged back to his car, rain blurring everything. But as he opened his door, a sudden blast of wind slammed it shut again. He tried again, pushing harder this time, and finally climbed in. Emma stared at him with wide eyes. "You're all wet." "Cold rain," he laughed, trying to sound light. "They're sending help. We'll wait a few minutes until the road clears." But the storm was only getting worse. Thunder rumbled like distant explosions. The truck that had been ahead earlier was now crawling slowly along the road. The cars behind them passed carefully, tires splashing through deep water. Daniel wiped the fogging windshield with his hand. He felt uneasy. Something in the air felt wrong. The wind shook the car slightly. He placed a hand on Emma's knee. "We'll keep going once it's safer. I promised we'd get there today, didn't I?" "Yes," she said softly, trusting him completely. That trust squeezed his heart. He checked the mirror again. A pair of headlights approached in the distance. At first, he thought nothing of it. But the lights appeared too fast for the storm conditions. Much too fast. The car behind them was moving quickly, its tires sending long sprays of water in both directions. Even through the rain, Daniel could tell it was not slowing down. "Come on," he murmured. "Slow down." But the car didn't. A wave of fear rushed through him. The shoulder was narrow. Cars were passing on the left. There was nowhere to move. "Emma," he said, his voice suddenly firm but gentle. "Keep your head down, okay?" Right now. She didn't ask why. She ducked instantly, trusting him. Daniel braced his hands on the wheel. The fast-approaching car skidded slightly, its headlights jerking sideways. It tried to brake, but hydroplaned, sliding uncontrollably on the water-covered road. Daniel's heart pounded. Time seemed to slow. He had only one thought: protect Emma. He leaned his body toward the back seat, positioning himself between the oncoming danger and his daughter. The sound that followed was loud, sudden, and powerful, metal hitting metal, the world shaking, the windshield cracking in a flash of white. The impact forced them forward, then sideways, then everything went still except the storm. For a few seconds, Daniel heard nothing. His ears rang, his mind felt foggy. Then he heard a small voice. "Daddy, Daddy!" "Emma." He tried to move. Pain shot through his body, but he didn't care. He turned his head slowly. Emma was crying but alive. She was still strapped tightly in her seatbelt. "Daddy, are you okay?" Daniel forced a smile, even though breathing hurt. "I'm okay," he whispered. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No." Relief washed over him, warm and powerful. Outside, people were rushing toward them, shouting for help, calling emergency services. Someone opened the door carefully, checking Daniel and Emma, but Daniel's eyes stayed on his daughter. Rain still pounded the roof, but the sound felt distant. "Daddy, don't close your eyes," Emma said, reaching for his hand. He squeezed her tiny fingers gently. "I promised you we'd get there," he whispered, voice weak but full of love. "And you will. I promise." Tears streamed down her cheeks. The world grew harder for Daniel to see. Not dark, just distant. But he wasn't afraid. Emma was safe. That was all that mattered. The paramedics arrived quickly, pulling the door open and working urgently. Voices blended with the rain and thunder. Hands reached out. Instructions were shouted. A stretcher was brought. Emma was carried out first, wrapped in a blanket, crying for her father. Daniel was lifted next. Even through the pain and the fading sounds, he felt calm. He had kept his promise, the most important one a father could make. Hours later, the storm passed. The sky cleared. Emma sat beside her grandmother in a quiet hospital waiting room, clutching her handmade card. She stared at the floor, her small shoulders shaking now and then. Her grandmother held her close. "Your father loves you very much," she whispered. "He always kept his promises." Emma nodded slowly. She knew. She felt it. Later, when the doctors came to speak with them, Emma listened with trembling lips. Some words were too big for her heart to understand. Others sank in painfully. Her father had protected her. He had taken the impact so she wouldn't. He had saved her life. That night, surrounded by family, Emma placed her birthday card on her grandmother's lap and whispered, "Daddy kept his promise." Her grandmother held her tight, tears falling silently. In the days that followed, Emma remembered many things. His laugh, his tired eyes, the way he tucked her hair behind her ear, the warmth of his hand holding hers, and the soft strength in his voice when he told her everything would be okay. But the thing she carried with her for the rest of her life was this: a father's love is stronger than any storm, and a promise made with love never breaks. Moral lesson: the road can be full of unexpected dangers, but safe choices, patience, and responsibility can save lives. Never rush, never drive recklessly, and always put safety first, because every moment on the road affects more than just you. Lives depend on the decisions you make behind the wheel.